and just future. I think that we will have a very interesting discussion to really create the conditions for a good conversation these days. Ambition will be a key word. So this is my pleasure now to give the floor to Mr. Simon Steele, Executive Secretary of the United Nations Convention on Climate Change. Thank you, Mr. Steele.
Thank you, Alicia. So, Excellencies, Honourable Ministers, colleagues, friends, thank you for being here at this critical moment for global climate action. We're meeting in Panama, a carbon-negative country and a climate leader. Thank you to Minister Navarro and the government of Panama for your generous hosting. Thank you. We have revitalized Climate Weeks to focus on implementation. This roundtable is central to that effort. Over the next hour, we'll shine a spotlight on the most powerful tool countries have now and COP30, the next generation of national climate plans, NDCs. These plans are not just paper documents. Done right, they are economic blueprints, development strategies, and engines for prosperity. More than 170 countries are preparing new or enhanced climate plans ahead of Belém. They must reflect not only global climate ambition, but also national goals for growth, jobs, energy security, and health. Clean energy already employs over half the energy workforce, and that number will grow as we scale renewables and resilient infrastructure. Each nation has the opportunity to claim its share of the global boom in clean energy, worth over $2 trillion last year alone. Each dollar invested in adaptation today can yield up to 10 times in returns, while protecting lives, livelihoods, and economies. This is a growth agenda, a security agenda, and a fairness agenda. Friends, the Paris Agreement has given us the framework. We now must lead with plans that are ambitious, credible, and fully integrated with development. This roundtable is a space to connect ambition with action, to move from promise to practice. To succeed, we need three things. First, political leadership. Climate ambition is the cornerstone of long-term national stability and prosperity. And honourable ministers, your leadership in embedding ambitious climate plans into national development planning is absolutely essential. Second, alignment and integration. The strongest plans will reflect whole of government, whole of society approaches. So they must align with national plans on health, jobs, agriculture, and energy, because climate is not one issue among many. It is the thread running through them all. And third, support and solidarity. We cannot expect countries to deliver bold plans without the means to do so. That's why finance, technology, and capacity building must be central. To the representatives of multilateral development banks and private capital here, your role is incredibly important. You can ensure that every dollar goes further. I'm often asked, what does success look like a COP30? One part of the answer is this: a world in which every country comes to Belém with a plan that is ambitious, aligned, and implementable. A world where we can show that climate action is delivering not only emissions reductions, but economic growth and benefits to all. A world where we can look each young person in the eye and say, we had a plan, we acted, and we made your future more secure. So today, I ask each of you to lead by example, to show that climate ambition is not a cost, it's a competitive advantage. Because the difference between success and failure lies not in technology or finance. We have both. It lies in political will and our collective skill. So let this Climate Week and this roundtable send a clear signal. We're raising our ambition and we're delivering on them. I thank you and I look forward to the discussions now. Thank you very much.
Thank you. After these very inspiring words, looking for ambition, I think we have the momentum for a good discussion on Ambition 2 and NDCs. So I will introduce now our dear panelists. First, I would like to invite Minister Juan Carlos Navarro, our dear host, Ministro de Ambiente de Panamá. Por favor. María Camila Cepeda. Ella es la jefe de Asuntos Internacionales en la Secretaría de Estado de Medio Ambiente
de México. Environment and Natural Resources from Mexico. Minister Dr. Lena Yanina Estrada, Minister of the Environment from Colombia, please take your seats.
Ministra Lena, no sé, aquí.
Minister Lena, please here. Thank you very much. We also have the pleasure of inviting Ms. Nigrat Bardadai, who is climate change high-level champion for COP29.
And finally, Mrs. Lilian Chagas, she is the lead negotiator for COP30 from Brazil. Thank you very much. Hello. Thank you very much. I'm very welcome to this discussion. I think that it's important that we have a strong message today. The discussion will be in both English and Spanish. Feel free to use the language you prefer. And first, I would like to ask all of you, what is your view? What is the current situation? How do you see the current ambition? How do you consider that we are prepared for having these ambitious NDCs and in the way to COP30? And I will begin by giving the floor to Minister Navarro. Thank you, Minister. It's your turn.
Thank you. Well, I spoke about this briefly this morning. I think that our situation is a bit like the old Chinese saying, there is chaos under the heavens and the situation is perfect. We have tremendous challenges, but we also have opportunity.
Thank you. Very good headline. Thank you very much. Now, Ministra Lena Yanina Estrada.
Janina Estrada, maybe if you can give her a first headline as to how you feel we should focus the discussions on the NDCs and the ambition looking towards COP30. What is Colombia's vision? Especially you who have arrived with a new force to this
Bueno, muchas
discussion.
gracias a
Thank you
ustedes
very much
como
to you
organizadores por invitarnos a
as
este
organizers
espacio
for inviting us to this space.
y porque seguramente compartimos unos
And because
compromisos
surely
que son mutuos.
we share some
Nosotros
commitments that
como
are
Colombia
mutual.
tenemos en este momento un
As
enfoque
Colombia, at this
muy
time, we have
especial
a
que es
very special
darle la
approach,
voz a las
which is to
comunidades
give a voice
y
to the communities and
territorializar la participación y
territorialize
que esta participación sea
participation, and that
incidente.
this
Creo que ese es
participation
el
should
primer
be
enfoque que
in
nosotros
I
tenemos
think that's the first
y de
focus
esta
that we
manera
have.
vamos a
And in
anclar
this way,
las NDC
we will
en
anchor
los
the
territorios,
NDCs
llevando toda la
in the
discusión
territories,
internacional a
carrying
los
the full
territorios
international
y
discussion to
generando
the territories
diálogo
and
en
generating
los territorios para que esos
a
resultados
dialogue there
podamos
so
subir
that those
nuevamente
results
por medio de
can
nuestro
be
documento
raised
como
again
Colombia
through
y
with this
llevarlo a la
momentum
discusión
as Colombia
internacional.
and take it to
Muchas
international
gracias. Claro el
discussions.
mensaje.
Thank you very
I
much.
would like
Very clear
to give the
message.
floor to Mrs. Nigarar Paradise. You have a lot of experience in negotiations, so we would like to listen what would be the main message right now regarding how can we look at the NDCs right now and the future in the coming months.
Thank you very much. Luckily, I'm not involved in NDC development process, I must say. But honestly speaking, what would be the message? The message would be to the non-state actors, basically, because I represent the non-state actors, is that you should be involved in this process. So, and it should be done in the dialogue. So basically, dialogue and partnership is something that I would call, I think, in one sentence.
Thank you. Thank you, clear, because this collaboration with private sector will be key to have good NDC. So thank you. Maria Camila, now is your turn. How Mexico is facing this situation, and you can give us a headline right now.
Muchísimas gracias. Y tenemos ya una guía muy clara.
Like
Hace 2
already
años
had a very
acordamos
clear
un balance
guide 2 years
global
ago. We
que nos
agreed
da
on a global
recomendaciones
balance that
puntuales. Entonces,
provides a
el balance
specific
global es nuestra hoja
recommendation.
de
So
ruta
the global
y
balance
vemos que
is our
tenemos que tener
roadmap
una NDC
in which
alineada
we
a
need to
no
have
incrementar
an
trayectoria más
NDC
allá
that's
de
aligned
1.5.
to a
Y ese
trajectory that
es
goes beyond
nuestra
1.5.
estrella hacia adelante, el
And that
camino a
is
seguir.
our
Y
North
para ello,
Star, the path to
ciertamente,
follow.
requiere
And for this,
involucrar a todos los
certainly,
sectores de
it
la sociedad.
requires
Tenemos que, en
engaging all
línea con el
sectors of
acuerdo de
society.
Escazú,
We
que es
have
un
to be
acuerdo muy
aligned with this
importante para nuestra región,
agreement, which is
el
very important for our
asegurarnos
region,
que toda la
to
participación pública
ensure
se vea
the
reflejada
full
en una
public
NDC
participation
ambiciosa.
is
Entonces,
reflected in
haciendo
an
eco de
ambitious
mis predecesores,
NDC. And
es
so,
una
echoing
incorporación
my predecessor,
transversal,
it's
integral,
a
que vea
cross-cutting,
no al solo
comprehensive
medio ambiente
integration
como
doesn't see
guía,
only see
sino
the
como un
environment as
engranaje
the guy, but
de
seeing
toda la
it
sociedad.
as part of a
Muchas
structure, the
gracias.
thread of society.
Lilian,
Thank you very
ahora
much.
todas las
Lillian,
vistas están
now
puestas en Brasil.
all
Pues
eyes
a ver
are
cómo,
on
cómo veis como
Brazil.
titular
It's
la
important to
situación en
know
este momento.
how do you see the situation at this
Thank
moment.
you. Good
Like
afternoon. It's a
Helen.
pleasure to be in this panel. I would recall a sentence that the COP30 with youth champion just said here in this panel in the event that was before on Mutirão. She said, "We don't have time, and we know the solutions." So I think we should apply this to the NDCs. The NDCs are the spine of the Paris Agreement. This is the year of the second cycle of NDCs. And even though we have 10 years of the Paris Agreement, we have lots of experiences, lots of programs, workshops to support countries to organize their NDCs, even though most of the parties didn't conclude the work and are still pending on the presentation of their NDCs. So my first approach to this moment is the urgency. You know, governments, non-party stakeholders, private sector, the urgencies for everyone. So present the NDC much before COP30 in time to be included in the synthesis reports that the UNFCCC prepare for us, it's essential. Thank you.
Muchas gracias. Tenemos aquí 4 países muy poderosos en la negociación. Azerbaiyán, que el año
Very
pasado
powerful
lideró
country
unas
in the
negociaciones
Azerbaijan that last year led
complicadas, con gran
some
éxito.
complicated
Se
negotiations
cumplen
very
10
successfully.
años del Acuerdo de París.
It's been
10
10 years for the
años
Paris Agreement,
del lanzamiento de los Objetivos de
10
Desarrollo
years from
Sostenible.
the launching
Creo
of
que
the Sustainable
va a
Development
haber muchas
Objectives.
miradas puestas en
There'll
los
be
resultados
many
de las
eyes
negociaciones
placed
este
on the
año y por eso
result
me gustaría
on this year.
empezar
So
escuchando
I would
los
like to
países que
start
ahora
by
están preparando y
listening to the
trabajando en
countries
sus
that are now
NDCs,
preparing and
cómo se
working
está
on their
planteando la
NDCs,
ambición y sobre todo,
how
ministro Navarro,
the
empiezo
ambition
por
is being
usted,
proposed. Minister Navarro,
cómo
I'll
se
start with
integra esta
you.
ambición de la NDC con las
How
prioridades
does this
nacionales,
NDC
cómo asegurar que
integrate with
efectivamente hay
national
una
priorities?
apropiación
How do
por
you
parte
ensure
de
that it's an
los ciudadanos.
appropriation?
Muchas gracias y muy buena pregunta para
Thank you
todos
very much,
nosotros.
and very good
Es
questions.
crítico para todos nuestros países
It's critical for
que
us,
los
for our country,
NDCs se
that the
integren
NDC
íntimamente en la fibra misma
is
de nuestras
intimately in
naciones.
the very
Para
fiber of
Panamá,
our
la ambición no
nations.
se mide
In Panama,
por el
ambition
número
is
de
not
páginas
measured
de nuestras
with the
metas
number of
climáticas.
pages of
Para
our
nosotros
climate
se
goals.
mide de acuerdo a qué tan
For
profundo
us, it's mentioned as to
está
how deep
la meta climática
is the
dentro
climatic goal
de los objetivos nacionales
within
y la
the
sociedad
national objectives and the
De hecho,
Panamanian
lo que va a
society.
hacer nuestras metas climáticas
What will
verdaderamente
be our climate goal
efectivas
truly
es que sean
effective
no argumentos
is that they should be
únicos,
not arguments,
solitarios,
not
que
or in
se vean
silos,
como
alone,
unidades
individual, that be
independientes,
seen as
sino que
independent
todo lo
units.
contrario, que sean parte de algo
Rather,
mucho mayor,
it's
de algo mucho
part
más
of
grande.
something much bigger,
Y por
something
eso,
greater.
nuestro
And for that
compromiso
reason,
de Panamá
our
con la naturaleza.
commitment as
Este
Panama
compromiso, lo
with
que hemos llamado
nature.
en inglés
This
el
commitment, what
Panama
we
Nature
called in
Pledge,
English
es
the Panama Nature
precisamente
Pledge,
una
is
estructura nacional
precisely
que
a national
integrada que nos va a
structure
permitir
that's
unificar
integrated that
nuestras
will allow
metas
us to
y
unify
NDCs, nuestras metas
our
climáticas,
units in the
con
NDCs
nuestra
and our
estrategia
climatic
para
goals
conservar la
with our
biodiversidad,
strategy to conserve
nuestras metas
biodiversity,
para enfrentar la desertificación
our goals
y
to
también para reducir y eliminar
stop
la
desertification
contaminación
and reduce
plástica.
and
De
eliminate
hecho, esto se
plastic
tiene que hacer con mucha
pollution with
participación
plastics. So this
pública
all needs to be
y
done with plenty
ciudadana.
of public participation and also from the
Quiero reiterar
citizens.
que para nosotros
I'd
en
like
mi
to
ambiente esto es
reiterate
crítico.
that for
De
us,
hecho, hoy
this is critical.
hemos iniciado la
today,
consulta pública de
we
nuestra
started a public
nueva ley
consultation
climática, ley del
of our
clima.
new
Y estamos invitando a
climatic
todas
act
las
or climatic
ONGs,
law.
los
We're inviting
científicos, los
all the
ciudadanos,
NGOs,
a todos los actores del
citizens,
privado, a que
all
todos,
stakeholders, private
instituciones
sector,
públicas, académicas,
so that
que
they,
nos hagan
public
llegar su
institutions, the
análisis
academia,
de la
they
nueva
can
ley climática de Panamá,
deliver their
hacer la
analysis of the
consulta
new
pública hoy.
climate law in Panama that was
Importantísimo lo
out
que
today
nos
for public
comparte,
consultation.
ministro, de un
Very
proceso
important what you just share.
participativo y
This is a
comprensivo también
participative
con el tema de la
process and
naturaleza.
also comprehensive
Pregunto
as
ahora
far as nature.
a la ministra de
I'll ask
Colombia,
again
mirando también un poquito hacia el
the Minister of
futuro,
Colombia,
¿no?
looking a little bit towards the
¿Cómo se
future,
deben trabajar y actualizar estas NDCs mirando al futuro? ¿Cómo innovar? ¿Cómo
updates
incorporar
NDCs,
aspectos que a lo mejor hasta ahora no
incorporate
estaban
aspects,
tan integrados en los procesos de elaboración?
integrate the process to elaboration?
Sí, bueno, pienso que como país,
I think
nosotros
that as a country,
estamos estableciendo, como les dije, la ruta de
we
la
are establishing, as I said, the roadmap territorialization
con garantías,
of
pero también
the
es muy
participation with
importante
assurances, but it's also
para
very
nosotros,
important
como país y
for
dado
us
nuestro proceso
as a
interno,
country
abordar
in our internal
el
processes
tema de la
to
paz. El
approach it.
asunto de la paz
That is the
es
topic of
importante
peace.
para que
Peace
podamos
is important so that
hacer
we
que la población
can
cierre
have the
brechas, para
population,
que
tengamos take ownership of the rights so that we can
que sea
have
social,
a justice that be social,
para que fortalezcamos las
also
capacidades
for
de
to
las
strengthen
poblaciones locales en el
the
marco de
capabilities of
un
local
conflicto
communities
armado que
in the framework
nosotros
of an armed
tenemos
conflict
internamente, pero
that we
que
have internally,
estamos
but
totalmente comprometidos
we are
en
totally
superar.
committed
Entonces,
in overcoming.
estas NS son una
And
oportunidad
these NDCs
incluso
are
para
an opportunity even
superar
more
el conflicto,
to
porque gran
overcome
parte del conflicto
the
armado
conflict, because a
es
large part of the
por las
armed conflict
territorialidades, por
is
los
due to
y por
territoriality
los recursos naturales.
and natural
Y la guerra
resources.
por los recursos naturales
And the war for
es una
natural
guerra que no tiene
resources
una protección
is
jurídica,
one that doesn't have legal protection,
incluso más allá de los derechos humanos. Y esto es
even
algo
more
a lo
than
que
human
tenemos que
rights.
prestar
And this is
atención.
something that
¿Qué
we need to
hacemos
pay
con los
attention
delitos
to.
ambientales? ¿Y qué
What are we
hacemos
doing with environmental
para
crimes, and what are we
garantizarle la
doing
seguridad a esas
to provide
personas y
assurance to those
colectividades
people
que
and
defienden
collectivities that
los
defend
recursos naturales y que están en
natural
contra de todos
resources
esos delitos
and that are
ambientales?
against all
Por eso
those
para nosotros
environmental
también
crimes? For that
es una
reason, for us,
prioridad implementar
it's
Escazú,
also a
que
priority to implement
en
Escazú,
el
which was
2023 en
ratified, I think, in
Colombia, y
2023
ahora
in Colombia,
acabamos de iniciar
and now
hace
we
2 meses
just
un
started
proceso de
2
mirar
months ago
cómo
a
vamos
process
a
to look and see
implementar Escazú
how are we going to
después de su
implement
ratificación
Escazú
interna
after
para que
its internal
también este proceso
ratification.
sea participativo
This
y
process be
de acuerdo a las
participated
realidades
as
de
well,
cada una de
and
las
according to the
regiones
realities of
podamos
each of the
abordar
regions,
también
we can
el tema de
then
la seguridad,
deal
porque
with the
el
topic of
asunto de la seguridad
security, because the
también
thing
debe
about
de
security
abordarse
also
en
should be
estos NDC,
approached
de manera que
in
nosotros
these
demos
NDC in a way
participación,
that we
garantías,
give
cerremos
participation
brechas,
assurances, we bridge
construyamos
gaps,
paz.
we build
Y
peace.
por otro lado, para terminar,
And
es
on
muy
another note,
importante que
and this to finish,
podamos
it's very
poner en
important
marcha el portafolio
that
de
we
acción
can put into
climática, de
motion the
transición
climate
socioecológica
action
y
portfolio
energética
for
para la
socio-ecological energy
estructuración
transition
y
for the
presentación ante
structuring
entes
and
financieros
submittal before
de
financial
ese
entities
portafolio de proyectos y programas
of this
de
project
alto
portfolio
impacto.
and
De esta
high
manera
impact
podemos
programs.
acelerar
In this
el
way,
proceso
we
de los
can
NDC
expedite
y que
the process of the NDCs,
este portafolio sea de interés
and this
nacional, pero
portfolio
incluso también
be of national interest,
debemos
but even
tejer
more,
unos intereses que sean
you must
regionales.
bring in
Muchísimas
some that are
gracias. Yo
regional.
creo que es
And
muy
so
importante
thank you very
estas
much. I think
NDCs,
it's
estas NDCs de
these
nueva generación.
NDCs
Creo
are
que
very
cuando se
important in its new
concibió el
generation. I think that
instrumento,
when
nadie
the instrument
podía
was
pensar en el
conceived,
potencial
no
tan,
one
tan
could
grande que
think
tiene de procesos
as to the large
participativos
potential they have
integrados
for
en las
participative
prioridades
processes
nacionales y
into
creo que eso es
international
un salto
priorities.
importante en
And
este
I
proceso
feel
que
it's an
todos
important
vamos a vivir y
leap
que
in this
veremos los
process that we're
resultados
going to be living
seguramente
through,
en
and
la
surely we'll
COP30.
see
Antes
the result
de
at
preguntar a nuestra
COP30.
champion, querría, María
Before I
Camila,
ask our
que también
champion,
desde la
Maria
experiencia
Camila,
de México
like
nos
for her, that
puedas
from
contar
from
cómo
Mexico's
ves el
experience,
proceso
you
de la
can tell
evaluación
us
de NDCs
how do you
ahora con un
see
nuevo
the
gobierno, ¿no? En
process
las
of the NDCs
prioridades
now with a
nacionales del
new
país,
government,
cómo se puede trabajar de una
national
manera
priorities in the
pues,
country?
realmente
How can you
participativa.
work
Claro que sí.
in a really
Nuestra primera
participative way?
recomendación
Of
es
course, our
elijan
first
ustedes a
recommendation
una
is
presidenta mujer
you
que
choose
sea
a
científica
woman
climática.
president
Eso
to
ayuda
be
mucho.
pro the environment. I think this would
Ya
help a lot.
mencionaba
So climatic
Simon Steele
action.
que
I
necesitamos
mentioned
primero
Simon
liderazgo
Steele
político.
that
Y el
first
que
we need
tengamos
political
una
leadership,
presidenta que estuvo en el
and
panel
that we have
intergubernamental
a
de cambio
president that was
climático
in the
hace
intergovernmental
toda la diferencia.
panel for
Vemos
climate
cómo
change makes
políticos de
all
ese
the
nivel
difference.
podrían
I think how
descarrilar
politicians
todo,
could
pero a su vez
derail
también
everything,
pueden
but at the same
potenciar las
time,
oportunidades.
they
Entonces,
can
para
also
nosotros,
enhance
en
opportunities.
este
So for
gobierno,
us,
la alineación, que
in
es el
this
segundo punto que
government,
mencionaba
the
Simon Steele,
alignment, which is the
es mucho
second
más
point that
sencillo,
Simon
porque
mentioned,
viene
is
ya
much
desde una
more simple.
directriz muy clara de
It
nuestra
comes from
presidenta,
a very
en
clear
el que
guideline from
todo
our
el
president,
desarrollo, además, vamos
in
arrancando
which the full
del Plan
development, I
Nacional
mean,
de
we're gonna
Desarrollo, de los
kick off
planes
with the National
sectoriales,
Development
de
Plan for
ahora
these
la
future plans,
del Plan Nacional de Adaptación,
after
la
the
estrategia de
national,
todos
the
los
long-term
argumentos, todos
strategy.
sean consecuentes y
All
todos
our
vayan avanzando
consensus
hacia una
are
misma,
sequential
a
and
un
will
mismo
move
camino que
towards
es ambición
a same
climática,
end,
pero
which
además
is
generando
climatic
sinergias
ambition, but
con
also
todos los procesos
generating
ambientales. No,
synergies
no vemos
with all the environmental
una,
processes.
una NDC
We
sin que se
don't
esté hablando de
see
todos los
an NDC
beneficios
without talking
con
about all the
biodiversidad, con
benefits with
desertificación, con
biodiversity,
contaminación. Tenemos que ver
desertification,
las
contamination.
crisis
We
ambientales
need to
como
see
algo
the environmental
interrelacionado que
crises as
para ello
something
tenemos que integrar.
interrelated,
Para poder
and then for this we
integrarlo,
need to integrate.
viene el
To
tercer
integrate,
punto, apoyo,
the third element. Support. We need the full community. In this new process of the NDCs, already developing the numbers, we will have our first government session. In fact, we've invited the executive secretary next week, who will be in Mexico, to be able to have this intersector meeting with all the ministries and having this feedback, whether from the private sector, academia, the communities. You need to mention that this is not an heterogeneous society. We were in previous meetings that we need to understand that a country is diverse, a country is complex, and thus consultations are not just one forum and we're done. We need to have a series of approaches. In our case, we're also a federal country, so for the first time we had a meeting with our environmental authorities from government that also add a lot to the process. We have the mayor from Guadalajara giving a specific example. So how do we add voices as we approach COP30? And for this, if I may, include one more commercial. We talked about this regional integration, so we're quite interested in hosting the ministers from Latin America and the Caribbean. We receive an invite soon, 25, 26 August, to strengthen this cooperation in Latin America and the Caribbean that we feel is fundamental to reinforce our NDCs. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. I feel that you've given very clear and important messages. In a situation that will in America, it seems to reinforce the voice in these conversations will be key. New perspective and vision, and surely it will be very important looking towards COP30. I'd also like to go look at COP29 for a moment.
Your experience during the COP29 negotiation, and now you are trying to promote effective involvement on different stakeholders, cities, private sector, or communities. So, looking at the relevance of the process, what do you consider could be the most important thing to consider before the COP30?
Well, thank you for the question. I think that NDC development itself is a very complex process, obviously. It needs the involvement of all the agencies, of all the structures. But from my experience and from meeting people, and especially private sector from different parts of the world, one thing is clear to me that business people, private sector people, entrepreneurs, they want to be involved and they are ready to be involved. But in many cases, this process goes kind of without the proper engagement of non-state actors. That's the message that I wanted to say, actually. Because wherever you talk to the civil society, indigenous peoples, and private sector, so they are saying that we need a better dialogue with our government. This is the message. And when you speak about the global climate action and the NDC development process, NDCs will impact the whole society, right? So when the government is taking commitments, it will impact private sector, it will impact civil society and all the stakeholders. But in many cases, they are not properly involved. So for example, in our country where we just started, I must confess that the climate action itself and the this agenda was pretty new for Azerbaijan and for the region itself. So with COP coming to our region, we not only came with, all those successful and historical decisions on climate finance and on the rest, but we also kind of brought the climate agenda to our region. That's one of the success stories of COP. And when we were talking to private sector in Azerbaijan, for example, they were asking us, okay, what does it mean to us? That we know that the government is working on some document, but what will it practically mean for us? Like, how is it impacting us? And we have organized a number of sessions with the government people, and also this process is going on. But what we've seen very positive feedback from private sector. on a different level. So for example, construction companies came together and made a pledge that, okay, we understand the importance and we are happy to consider sustainability and consider, this climate change factor in our strategies. And sector by sector, we started working with different private sector to inform them, first of all, and to give them a chance to understand what that means for them. So I think that we need a better dialogue. And again, like as climate champions, we have come up with a number of reports, getting feedback from all the stakeholders, and many of them are ready, they are ready and they are saying that, okay, we want our governments to come up with more ambitious NDCs. But again, there should be a proper dialogue. Like when you speak about indigenous people, they know, they have this local knowledge, they understand the situation much better. Local communities know that knowledge, so they need to pass it to the proper government officials. It should be done on many levels, policy making, private sector, civil society doing this accountability monitoring, and even educating public. So I think that what we are lacking in global climate action and climate community is a proper education. We are not sending a message to ordinary people why we are doing that, why it's important, and why government needs to take this responsibility and commitment.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Very, very clear message, how to build partnerships. Now I will go to Lilian in Brazil. You are now working very hard to really make inclusive processes. What could be your idea now how NDC can be really powerful and participative?
Yes, I think that the example of Brazil is a good example as NDCs going much beyond climate policy. The new generations of NDCs, they are where climate meets development. They are a group of, they elaborate policies that are economy-wide. Now they represent or they impact different sectors of the economy and of society. So the whole of government, whole of society, whole of economy approach, it says that is much more than climate policies. Is a guidance to growth. This country has this plan for the next 10 years, and it is climate sensitive, but it gives clear direction or where the economic sectors are going and how they can get there, what policies must be in place to enable these policies to be effective. So in the case of Brazil, it was very interesting because we are hosting COP30, the government wanted to lead by example and be on time, be among the first countries to present their NDCs. We presented with our vice president, a high level of government. He went to Baku to COP29 and handed it over to Mr. Simon Steele, Brazil's second NDC, which is really, it encompasses, a plan for development in the next 10 years. But what's interesting, when you see different groups of society approaching government saying, I want the recognition of my vulnerability to be in the NDC. I want questions of land demarcation to be in the NDC. So when you see these movements, then it's clear that you mainstreamed climate policies. This is something that is happening and will happen even further, and it shows that climate policies is much more than climate policies. And I like to say that if an extraterrestrial comes to a country and reads its climate policy, it will be a clear path to where this country is going, which areas there are to invest. Private sectors can jump in and see opportunities to invest in different sectors because it's all there.
Thank you very much. We have heard Mr. Steele to call for ambition and practical actions. We have here many negotiators, many people shareholders in the climate change world. So I would like to listen to you. What could you consider first ambition? What could be a result for you? What does ambition mean? And if you can share one action that you consider that could be an example for other countries, other not only participants in this panel, but many people that could be listening to us. What would that mean, ambition, and an example of that?
For me, ambition would be to make sure and guarantee that we have climate change policies embedded in every development plan and investment program for the country's future. En otras palabras, que nos aseguremos que los NDCs se conviertan en
works to ensure that the NDC can become in true national development plan that would gather our NDCs, that it would gather all the aspirations of our territories, our communities, our native groups, our provinces, but the private sector, the citizen that's on foot, academia, for the NDC to gather the sustainable development and the status of the country, and personally to say the most important thing, and it's also very important as a public policy of the Panamanian state, is the conservation of biodiversity as a fundamental building block, a structural basis that is undeniable for any NDC. I'll just give you one example. In Panama, the basin of the canal produces all the water that you're drinking this week. And all Panamanians in the metro region, our region, half of the country's population, and it is that same area had to produce all the water for the canal. It's $5-6 billion a year. In the year. From there, the authority of the canal is fully autonomous by constitution. That's a contribution to the government in cash of $2.5 billion. Plus all the economic elements of riches and employment. Besides all this has national parks like Chagres Park, Soberanía, Cruces, Campana, that are fundamental given their biodiversity that they protect. So it's a complete ecosystem. The best example, again, as I said before, sustainable development for me in the world, this watershed integrated to the population generates water, wealth, and protects our biodiversity. And each of these factors depends on the other for its own survival. That is the type of thing that should be as a building block, base structure, fundamental in any NDC in my mind. Thank you very much. Very clear message of integration, biodiversity, climate, life of people. And I think all this is well aligned with the vision that the minister conveyed before. I'd like to hear your vision, to how to translate ambition into something truly understandable for the people that participate in this process. How do you see it, and what would be your objective and ambition? Translate it.
Sí,
Yes.
para nosotros, los NDCs,
For us, the NDCs, let's say, there are several challenges. Some I've mentioned,
pero quiero entrar también
but I'd
en
like
otro
to
punto
also
que es,
go into
además de que
another
tienen que
point
ir unidos a los planes nacionales de
that besides
desarrollo, estoy
being
totalmente de
together with the
acuerdo con
National
eso.
Development
Debe
Plan, I
ser una
fully
prioridad
agree.
porque,
This should be a
es
priority
la manera en cómo lo atamos a la
because it's the
política
way
nacional
on
de
how we
cada uno
tie
de
this
los
to
países,
national
pero
policy of each
además
country.
creo que hay un punto que es
But
muy
besides, I
importante
think that
y
there
es
is
que
an
podamos
important point
descentralizar
that for
un
us
poco
to
los procesos. En
decentralize
nuestro caso,
processes a bit.
como
In
Colombia,
our
que somos
cases,
un país
as Colombia, that we
centralizado,
are a
encontramos
centralized country,
que
we did
son las
find
regiones
that
las
it's the
que
regions,
tienen las
the
principales
ones
problemáticas
that hold the
ambientales.
main
Y
issues,
cuando tenemos una
environmental
crisis
issues, that is, and when we have
climática, a donde primero
a
llega
climate
esa crisis
crisis,
es a las
first
regiones,
year, the
pero
one that first
además
arrives to the crisis is the
a
region,
las
but
zonas más
besides,
vulnerables.
to the
Entonces,
most
es
vulnerable
importante
areas. So
descentralizar no solo
it's
los
important
procesos,
to
sino
decentralize not
también
only the
los
processes,
mecanismos en los que llegan los
but also the
recursos.
mechanism
Y en eso
in
también
which,
estamos
in
trabajando.
the meantime, the researchers are
Estamos
arriving. That's what we're working
trabajando
on.
en que, por ejemplo,
We're working that, for example,
la regularización del carbono
the
sea
standardization
de una manera
that the carbon be
descentralizada,
regulated, that should be done
que
in
le
a
demos
decentralized fashion,
autonomía
that we
a las
should give
comunidades que están organizadas,
autonomy to those
que le demos
communities that are
soberanía
organized, that we
a
would
esas
give
comunidades que están en los
sovereignty to those
territorios,
communities
porque
that
al
are in
final
the territories,
son ellas
because in
quienes
the end,
están cuidando esos territorios,
they're the ones who are
no
stewarding
es
those
tanto el Estado
territories.
central
It's
o el
not as much
ministerio o el
the central
funcionario,
government
sino
or the
la
ministry or the
persona, el
official,
ciudadano que está en
but
el
rather the
territorio
people, the
y por lo
citizen that
tanto,
is
pues,
on the
¿por qué
ground,
no
and
darle esa
thus
capacidad
why not
de,
provide them
de
with
poder
this
movilizar y
training,
decidir cómo,
mobilizing and deciding
cómo hace para que ese
how,
funcionamiento de
what do
los
you do to
recursos
have that
que
functioning of
se va a generar
resources
por medio de la
that will be
naturaleza,
generated
pues
by
ellos
nature,
puedan
that they
decir qué
they
hacen,
can
cómo
say
hacen, cómo se
what they do,
proyectan,
how they do it, how they project,
obviamente con un acompañamiento del
obviously
Estado,
with an
del gobierno
accompaniment
que
from
es
government,
centralizado,
of the government
pero
that is
creo
centralized.
que
But
descentralizar es algo
I
que
think that to
también tenemos
decentralize
que
is something
empezar
that
a
we
pensar y
all
a
need
funcionar
to
de otra
start
manera para que
thinking
podamos
and having work in
llegarle
different way,
a los
so that
territorios.
we
Muy buena
can arrive at the
recomendación.
territories.
Que
Very
todos
good
anotamos.
recommendation, and we all
Nuestro
make
high-level
notes.
champion Nigar,
Our high
please,
level
from
champion
your
here, please.
perspective, looking at the experience you had in Baku and now, what
Viendo la
that
experiencia que tenía en
ambition
Bakú
means for you.
y ahora lo que significa esta ambición para usted.
Well, I think that
La
NDCs
ambición.
need to be ambitious. So we need
Creo que
to
las NDC
try
tienen que
and
ser
inform
ambiciosas.
public and
Tenemos que tratar de
educate it
informar.
properly to public why we are doing that, and we need to raise this ambition. On the other hand, I strongly believe that NDCs should also be realistic and kind of measurable, you know, and should be aligned to SDGs also, because we are doing that to our vision for future is sustainability and is health. It's about, you know, for a better life for people. So that's why they need to be realistic and achievable also. And in many cases, we don't properly calculate, you know, how it's done and how it impacts people. So yes, ambitious, and we need to try to raise ambition. We need to educate public and all the relevant stakeholders why we are doing that, but we need to keep it realistic and measurable and achievable.
Thank you very much. Nosotros vemos que la ambición en este caso es muy clara, es un nivel de temperatura que
Ambition is very
no podemos
clear.
superar,
It's a
pero
temperature
sí,
level that we
es
can overcome,
importante
but
traducir esto
I
en
think that
términos
it's
de la vida de
important to
las personas.
translate
Creo
this
que
as
aquí
far
hay
as the
puntos
lives of
muy
the people.
interesantes.
And I
Karina, me
think the very
gustaría
interesting
también
point here,
ver,
Karina,
se
I'd
está hablando
also
de los
like to
NDCs como
see,
planes de
we were
desarrollo
talking about the
nacional
NDCs as
y también
national
cómo eso
development
puede permitir
plans,
captar recursos
and
de
also how this
instituciones
can allow to
como la CAF,
capture
como otras
resources from
instituciones
institutions like the
multilaterales. Para
CAF or
nosotros también
other
es muy importante poder
multilaterals. For us,
identificar
it's also
en
very
estas
important to
NDCs qué
identify
realmente
at these
es necesario,
NDCs,
cómo podemos aportar y cómo hacer
if
que
it's
no
really
sean
necessary, how we can
condicionadas a la
contribute, how
financiación, sino que esa
they
financiación
are
se
not
movilice.
conditioned to
Si
finance
nos
it, but
podría
rather
dar
this
su
one would
opinión.
Monolith. Can you give
Bueno,
us your
hay
opinion?
tantas cosas por hacer
Well,
que para
there are
nosotros
so
la
many
ambición
things to do that
requiere
for
toda una
us.
transformación de la
Ambition
economía.
requires a
Hay que
full
cambiar la matriz
transformation of the economy.
energética,
Overall, you
eso
don't
va a
need
tomar
to
mucho
change the
tiempo, pero
energy
además
matrix.
hay
That
que
will take
pensar
a
en
long
medidas
time.
ya.
You should need to
México
think
se está
about steps to
calentando
take
a un
now.
nivel más acelerado que
Mexico
el resto del
is
mundo.
getting warmer
Entonces,
and an a higher level
población lo
than,
que ve es
faster
que
level than any other
ya
country.
tenemos
What our population
temperaturas
sees
insostenibles que están
is we
causando
have
además
unsustainable
desastres
temperatures that are
naturales aún
causing
mayor riesgo.
natural
Por ello,
disasters
para nosotros
and
es
that are
no
more
solo
frequent.
ver
So for
medidas
us,
ambiciosas de mitigación, que
not
por
just to
cierto
go
sí se
by
está
ambitious
ya teniendo todo un
mitigation,
plan
except that already
para
having a full
incrementar las energías
plan
renovables, pero
to
también en
increase
adaptación y
renewables, but
particularmente en
also in
soluciones basadas en
adaptation
la
and
naturaleza.
particularly
¿No? Nosotros
on
vemos que
nature-based
tenemos un gran
solutions. Well,
acervo, por
we
ejemplo,
see
de
that we have
manglares
a
que
great
nos permite, por
heritage
una
of
parte,
mangroves
proteger
that allows us,
biodiversidad,
on one hand, to
también
protect
captar
biodiversity,
emisiones de carbono y además
also to
hacer
capture
nuestra
carbon
costa
emissions,
más
sequester carbon
resiliente.
emissions, and to do
Entonces,
our
no tenemos que
coast more
dejar de lado que
resilient.
los
So
impactos ya se están
we don't need
sintiendo
to
y que no
let the
solo
input,
es de un
let the
plan
impacts that
a
are
largo
being
plazo,
felt, and
sino
it's
de
not just
acciones
one long-term
concretas
plan,
hoy
but
que nos permitan
specific
a la
actions
población
today
ser más
that
resiliente
allow
y
us as a
atender
population
también
to be more
ya
resilient
pérdidas y
and
daños que
also
enfrentamos de todos estos desastres
prevent
naturales.
damages
Entonces,
that we
ahora sí,
suffer
¿en qué se
from
necesita
past natural
apoyo?
disasters.
Es que
So
hay plan de
where do you need
restauración,
support?
acuerdo de
Is there a
bosques
restoration
manglares,
plan?
selvas,
According to what is
en
the
verdad es
mangroves and so
parques de
forth?
economía circular,
Truly,
atención al sargazo, o sea, es
circular
una
economy
diversidad de temas que tenemos
parks,
que verlos en
a
su
diversity of
conjunto y de
topics that we
manera
need to look
integral
at
y
them as a
estamos
whole
buscando
and
a toda la cooperación
comprehensively. We
internacional.
are looking for
Muchísimas
full
gracias. Ya estaremos
international cooperation.
movilizando.
Thank you very
And
much.
for Lilian,
And
the
there will
last
be
intervention as the presidency of the incoming COP, and having in mind we will have a COP in the Amazon and the challenges you are facing. What do you consider ambition can mean for people?
I would like to raise two questions regarding the next NDCs that I didn't hear in the panel. The main goal of climate policy of NDC is to establish the reduction, a target to reduce emissions of greenhouse gases. So in order to do that, it's a complex system. A country has to understand the profile of its emissions, should apply modeling to see how to approach emission reduction in a 10-year time. That is the NDC cycle. So it's a complex system, but it's doable. All countries have the capacity to do it. And for those who have less capacity, there is a whole environment of support in the international system, from the multilateral development banks, from the UN system, from UNFCCC, UNDP, and institutions like the NDC partnership that Brazil is in the steering committee with Denmark. So there is support, there is capacity building, there is resources, finance to countries go to these places and get help to organize their NDCs. This is one thing that I would like to remind everyone. And the second one is that this next generation of NDCs, they will be the first one which should be informed by the first global stocktake of the Paris Agreement. This is very important. As Camila pointed out, the global stocktake from COP28 brought a series of calls, recommendations to countries on the direction they should go on as far as climate change is concerned. Targets on the energy sector, halt and reverse deforestation. It's all there. And in theory, NDCs being organized right now, they should be informed by these calls. So we hope that we reach COP30 with full scenarios of NDCs from all countries, all parties of the Paris Agreement, because that's what they signed for in 2015. So no, this is our collective commitment, and these NDCs should be informed by the GST, meaning should encompass all economy and all gases, and also be aligned with the temperature limit of 1.5.
Muchas gracias. Bueno, creo que los mensajes han quedado muy claros. Hay que ser ambiciosos,
the
pero
messages have
también
been clear. We need to be
tener en cuenta
ambitious,
que estamos
but
hablando de la
also to
vida de las
keep in mind
personas,
that we're
de la
talking about
calidad de vida
people's
de las
lives,
comunidades
the
más
quality
vulnerables
of
y que
life
son
of the
procesos
most
integrados
vulnerable
que
community,
tienen
and
siempre que
these
ver
are
la ambición
integrated
desde esa
processes that
perspectiva.
always
Esperamos que
have
de
to do
aquí a los
from
próximos meses todas
everything
estas
that
NDCs que se están
have
preparando y
these next
presentando
session, the
todavía
NDC that we
sean muy
presented still
ambiciosas y que
be
bueno, pues las
quite ambitious,
negociaciones
and
realmente se encuentren
but during the
con un
negotiations,
resultado y un
please
análisis que nos
just
dé
let's
a
find
todos esa esperanza
also
de que
an
estamos
analysis
avanzando
that give
en
us
la
all
buena
hope that
dirección.
we are moving
Muchísimas
in
gracias
the
a
right
todos por sus
direction.
inspiradoras
Thank you
palabras,
very
son
much
todos
for
líderes
your
importantes en
inspiring
este
word. You are
proceso
important
que se
leaders in this
viene. Entonces
process.
les deseo la mayor suerte y
Okay,
por
so
parte
I wish you the best
de esta moderadora el
force.
apoyo siempre
And on
por
the part
parte
of
de
this
CAP.
moderator, be
Muchísimas
your
gracias a todos.
support
Muchas gracias.
from CAP always. Thank you.
Thank you very much.